Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. This is our very special happy birthday edition to our founder and champion of the American Dream, Mr. Jack Roeser. And I remember at one point you were saying that you used to build a lot of models.
Oh yeah, I got into building little model airplanes early, little tiny things of tissue and balsa wood. That would fly. I got them to fly.
So that was your engineering. That was kind of a precursor.
Well, it was, as it turned out, and certainly wasn't planned, but I like doing things. I think, in fact, I invented the clock radio.
Now, why do you say that?
Well, radios were around, although they were being run off of big batteries mostly, not transportable. But we had an old alarm clock, and we had a radio that could be turned on by a switch. And so I took one of my mother's thread spools, and I cut a slot in it. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I glued that on the wind-up button for the alarm clock, and I wound a string around the spool and took it off to an old pull light switch. And so when the clock radio went off, it would wind up the spring and pull the switch, and the clock radio would come
You
on.
don't have that, do you, anymore? Is that somewhere in your basement? That would be a wonderful thing to behold.
I never thought of that. In fact, I didn't know what an engineer was. Like I said, I went to 3 grammar schools and 3 high schools, so I know a lot about what education can be. And 2 of the schools were great. One was St. Jerome's Catholic School that I went 4 years. First, I went to the Portables Public School, and
you went to St. Jerome's over there by Ashland?
And then they skipped me ahead in the Portables.
Okay.
Went to a public school, and they weren't bad. I can remember first grade they were teaching phonics, and in little old steel shacks. But then I went to St. Jerome's, and they sent me back with my class, and when I got through that, I went to the public school on Lawrence Street, and they pushed me ahead. The Catholic school definitely was better. After that, I went to a Chicago high school, and then another one out in Maywood, Proviso. But I had the good luck. My last 2 years were at Oak Park High. My parents finally moved to River Forest, and then in an apartment.
Okay.
We weren't rich. We were in a walk-up apartment. And my mother let me make model airplanes. I took over her dining room table.
Okay.
And made a mess of the whole place. And my mother let me do that. And when we got into Oak Park, we had a home finally, and space to do things. But Oak Park High was a great school, and I learned a lot. It was a tough school. There was an English teacher that, Miss Monroe, was a school teacher of the old type when they made very little money. And she was a spinster lady, and she was 4th year English for me, and I hated memorizing and doing things like that. But she pounded Shakespeare and Chaucer and Milton and all of the great writers of the ages. We had a book that was 12 centuries of English prose and poetry. The kids called it 12 tons.
12 tons, I bet.
And she pounded me to learn all that stuff. I got more cultural education out of Miss Monroe than I got out of 4 years of college.
Now, that was my next question. Right after high school, did you go to college? Or you
Yeah,
went?
I did.
Okay, so you
I
didn't
did
go
1
into
year.
the military. Okay, let's hear a little bit about that. You went to 1 year college and then you went to the military?
Yeah, in December of '42, the war had started and got along pretty good without me. But in 1942, in December, just a year after Pearl Harbor to the day, I walked over to the Armory and enlisted in the Army. And I tell you, I was kind of hoping they wouldn't allow me in, because I was not a big, brave guy. I was a good student, and I did like wrestling as a sport and handball. but I wasn't impressing anybody with my fierceness.
Okay.
And,
but you were an engineer for the Army.
well, yeah, I wound up in the Army Corps, not only the Corps of Engineers, but the Combat Engineers, the 1689th
Okay.
Combat Engineer Battalion. We shaped up down in Oklahoma, and we learned how to build bridges and roads, and put in minefields and take them out, and booby traps. I know how to blow things up.
Oh, well, but you know how to build things. So
I know how to build them.
After the Army, you went to college, you got your degree. You know what I love? One of my favorite stories about you is you worked for a very rich man.
Yes, I did.
And you were Available Jones. Now, I want to hear a little bit about
Well,
your
the
early...
Available Jones came later.
Okay, let's hear about the very rich man, and I want to hear a little bit about that story, and then I want to hear about being Available Jones.
And I'll also say that Jack helped him become a richer man.
But that's okay. That's how that's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Because, well, I want to hear about this, and then I have some questions for you.
One thing about the Army, I was a good student, and I was a brainy kid that got good grades, and was interested in everything and how it worked and one thing and another. But when I went in the Army, I met a lot of great American men. Great guys. One of them was a policeman from Gary that had been a Golden Gloves champ, and he and I were great buddies. He was over 6 feet, and he was a man that nobody would trifle with. And another one was a basketball player from Fordham. Another was a road contractor from Boston. He was rich, but we were all privates in the Army.
But you know what, Jack? You come from a time, and you served with honor with the Great Generation. And your generation is what perpetrated Americanism.
Well, it was a big task to be done.
Yes.
We didn't ask for that fight, but we got in it.
But you just served your
I was
country.
always proud to be an American.
Yes.
That's it. American was a great thing to be. My dad certainly got a lot of that into me, because he was that. My dad was just a great figure of a guy, very strong, very kind. He said hello to everybody he met on the street, but my dad was immensely strong. In 1929, he got $500 together, and he bought a cottage on the north end of Pistake Lake. Well, he took over the payments for $500, but he built 3 wings onto that cottage with his personal labor. When I never saw my father resting, except he'd fall asleep reading his newspaper at night, but he put in a hard day every day.
So you had good principles that were taught to you at home. Work hard.
Oh, yes.
And 1929, that was the year of the Great Depression.
Yeah, that's when it started.
That's when the stock market crashed in October. So
And
for him to
there's
invest
a story
at
to
that time.
that ties in. In 1933, my appendix ruptured before anybody knew I was sick, and I went into a coma for 2 weeks. I was in the hospital for 6. Peritonitis set in, which there wasn't any penicillin or things like that.
That can be deadly.
And oh yeah,
Peritonitis, oh,
it
yeah.
killed my uncle, my dad's brother. Same thing. But in 1933, that happened to me, and my dad was at that time a salesman for millwork. My dad was made of wood. He knew all about wood and things made of wood. But he had a job as a salesman. Nobody had insurance. I got 6 weeks of obviously expensive treatment in a hospital. Obviously, I got over it. I was in a coma 2 weeks. Maybe that accounts for my failings today. But when Obama came along and said, you know, without the federal government, you can't get your medical help, I thought back then, somehow or other, I got excellent help and survived
But Jack,
a
wait.
really rotten thing, and my dad sure Nell wasn't rich.
But Jack, Obama also said if you have a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, yeah.
So, Mr. Obama, Mr. Roeser has championed the American dream, and yes, he has built it. And we're going to
I built 4 businesses
and
from the
we
ground
need to
up.
hear we
4
need
of
to
them.
hear about all of that, Jack, because this is a show about to honor your 89th birthday. Jack Roeser championing the American dream. Michael Brown, I know you have in order to throw in the water here before we go to break.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about the story, especially, he can't talk about his father without,
Pride.
His father laid a foundation for him and his life. One of the things I love about Otto is one of the reasons that everything that comes out of Otto is made out of excellence.
Excellence.
Is because his dad's name is on every piece that leaves
Otto's
out.
my company.
Yes, sir.